book lovers, my name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. Sorry for disappearing. Life has been a lot. There was a cancer diagnosis, a relative died, my dog died. Let's see, we got kicked out of our apartment because the owner decided that she wanted to sell it, and didn't really give us any options, so we had to move during the holidays. And then most recently, my bank account got hacked and I had a zero balance. So, you know, there's been a lot going on. There's been some depression, but most of all, like, I've just been busy. On the positive side, I also made over 30 scarves for Christmas, so that's also a big thing that kind of took up my time. Plus, I honestly just didn't feel up for making content at that point in time. Now I really want to get back into it, but it's kind of difficult to do so when I am at home these days because of the fact that, like, there is always someone there home with me, and I don't like recording with other people around. So I'm going to try to find workarounds if I can. As you can tell, I actually have my tripod with me this time, which, you know, rarely happens. Go me for actually freaking remembering it for once. And recording somewhere other than in my car. Right now I'm actually at my friend's place. I'm house sitting for them. So yeah, I'm just gonna take this opportunity to record as many videos as I can and get them edited. Thankfully, it's, you know, beginning of the year, so there's so much content that I can put out. But yeah, we'll see, because there's also a limited amount of space on my phone. Today I want to talk about my favorite books that I read in 2025, but first I usually open my videos with what I am reading and what I am drinking. What I am reading is a honker of a book. It is The End of the World as We Know It. It's by various authors, and it's all set in the world of The Stand by Stephen King. So far, I'm gonna be honest, it's rough. I had to renew this, and I got the audiobook for it so that even after I turn it in, because it's a library book, even after I turn it in, I can continue listening to the audiobook. Because honestly, the first few short stories have been pretty rough. Not bad. They've all been reasonably good at the very least, but they've all been depressing in one way or another. There was one that was kind of upbeat to an extent, where a dog saved a boy's life, but the rest of the story was also pretty depressing. So yeah, if you decide you want to read this because you like The Stand, please, please, please look up the trigger warnings first. As for what I'm drinking, I got a little bit bougie today. It was a little bit extra. I'm drinking vanilla bean espresso with pumpkin whipped cream. That looks so bad on camera. I promise it looks so much better in real life. God, it does not look appetizing on camera. God, why does it look yellow? I promise in real life it looks more pumpkin-y. Anyway, that's not what's important. What's important is that it tastes good and I like it. So, but moving on to my favorite reads of 2025, I'm just gonna set my coffee up there and hope for the best. Hopefully I won't end up wearing it. Now, these books aren't in any particular ranking. That being said, I probably will end it with my favorite. I am a little disappointed because I was originally going to record this with all of the physical books with me that I could, because I actually own a decent amount of these, or have a physical copy, like I have access to a physical copy. Unfortunately, I'm not at home and I didn't think to bring them with me. One example of this is the first book on my list, which is The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. I actually got this book as a present from my boyfriend. I believe it was for my birthday this year. I already knew that I liked John Scalzi, but this one kinda was top tier for me. I love his writing. I like how he takes a simple premise that we think we know a lot about and kind of twists it and adds some science to it. If you've never read his work and you're looking for something that's kind of on the lighter side because you've read something like this maybe, yeah, I do recommend the Kaiju Preservation Society for that, or The next one on my list, which is also by him, Starter Villain. Very similar, both comedies to some extent, but not to the point where it takes away from the story. They're very silly, but also just fun. So that's number 1 and 2. I meant to mention, I have 25 of these. It's meant to be my top 25 of 2025. I try to do something like that every year. It's gonna get to the point where it's kind of untenable when I get up to like the 2030s or something like that, but for now, I'm holding out. I'm gonna keep on. I'm gonna keep on with that tradition. The third book on my list is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. This book is exactly what it says on the tin. It's nonfiction, discussing how everything kind of links back to tuberculosis, and I found it completely fascinating. Number 4 is The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. This one was pretty interesting. I went into it with some hesitance, but I was pleasantly surprised. Not enough for it to make my most surprising list, which is incoming, but I did love it and I was kind of surprised by it. I love a lot of the imagery that was used and some of the twists. A little bit of it was kind of surreal, I'm not gonna lie. You might not like the ending, not sure. Definitely look up trigger warnings first because it gets pretty dark, but overall I really enjoyed it. Number 5 is The Unworthy by Augustina Basterica. She's the individual who wrote Tender is the Flesh. This one was not a disappointment. I was honestly looking forward to this one for the year because it was a new release, and it did not disappoint. Number 6 is The Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. This was sort of an autobiography and some of her most beautiful writing yet, honestly. I realized that I haven't really been giving summaries of these, so I'm sorry about that. I am going to kind of do a just overall list of everything that I read in 2025, and I'll probably go more into depth about these books in that video. In this one I'm just kind of listing out what my favorites were. But yeah, everything on this list is something that I truly loved for one reason or another. In this case, it's because it's Jesmyn Ward. I love her writing. Her prose is just beautifully written, and she's also just vulnerable in a very real way. So we have guest stars this time. This guy is Ruckus, and then this is Kara. They're both very sweet babies. I love them very much. There are also 2 cats named Josephine and Max. They are not mine. Excuse you, sir. Get out of my books. Don't try to eat my books. You're gonna knock my camera over, aren't you? This video is all over the place, and I don't remember what number I was on, so I'm just gonna jump back into it. My next book is A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. I believe this one was recommended to me by my girlfriend. I can't remember if I already had it on my list or not, but it's a beautiful short story. I think it's technically YA or for children, I'm not positive, but it's a delightful, sweet story, and I definitely recommend looking into it. It's short, really does not take long to get through, and it's absolutely delightful. My next book is Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This was her take on the fairy tale of Snow White, and as usual, I absolutely loved it. It's T. Kingfisher. I've yet to read anything by her that has made me, like, I've never been disappointed by her work, I don't think. I love her horror in particular. I'm sorry, I'm recording, honey. You're the one who jumped down. You can come back up. The next book on my list is Killer on the Road by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm not going to lie, I used to say the same thing about Stephen Graham Jones that I just said about T. Kingfisher, that I had never read anything by him that had disappointed me. This year that wasn't the case. I think I read 2 different things by Stephen Graham Jones that were a disappointment. Like, they weren't bad. Hi, why are you licking me? They weren't actively bad, they just weren't up to his usual standard. I promise I'm petting him and that I've been loving all these babies. They are just very, very needy. Those 2 books weren't up to his usual standard, but A Killer on the Road was. It was back to form. It was, you know, funny, dark, gruesome, just delightful, ultimately. I don't know why, but he's really good at writing from the perspective of a teenage girl, and he ends up kind of losing the plot whenever he tries to write from the perspective of a man or a teenage boy. I don't know why, but that just seems to be where he kind of gets lost in the weeds a little bit. The exception that I can think of is The Only Good Indians, which was amazing. But yeah, Killer on the Road, back to form, loved it. The next book is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Sapphic vampires, that's all I need to say. I absolutely love this, start to finish. There was a lot of violence, but not at the point where it took away from the story. So far I've loved everything that I've read by V.E. Schwab, though I think that's only like 2 or 3 books maybe. I do want to continue exploring her work sometime soon. The next book is Super Bloom by Nicholas Carr. This book was about how technology is basically pulling us apart, and it was a little bit life-changing. It kind of changed the tone of my entire year, honestly. So yeah, do recommend. Just go in knowing that you might come out feeling some kind of way. Now, if I was doing an actual ranking, then this next one would probably be close to the top. It's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Impeccable, probably my favorite of Grady Hendrix's work. I read it at the very beginning of the year, so I can say that with confidence, you know, that it's not just hindsight or, what's the word? Recency bias, that's the word I'm looking for. Just like looking back at his previous works and comparing it to this one after, you know, some hindsight of almost 12 months, this is still my favorite, and I think it can be kind of impactful. It's one of his darker works, but in just the best way. This next book would also be close to the top of the list, and I have a physical copy of it that was given to me by my boyfriend. I also have a physical copy of Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. It's beautiful, and I wish I had it with me. If I had planned this properly, I would have brought it with me. But yes, You Are Fatally Invited by Andy Plagio. One of my favorite murder mysteries at this point. It's a whodunit. And it's just like deliberately tropey and turns things on its head, and I loved it. I really loved it. I reread it shortly afterwards, and I would like to reread it again soon. But yeah, I enjoyed it enough that he ended up giving me a physical copy, so thank you. This next book is another autobiography. It's Semi-Well-Adjusted Despite Literally Everything by Alison Stoner. Think of something along the lines of Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mother Died. I think that's the name of it. Very similar kind of tone, like child actor, how that life affected them and impacted them, what their life was like at the time, the abuse that they suffered. But from her own life and her own words, obviously different experiences, extremely poignant. This next one would also probably be at the top of my list if I was ranking it. It's Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. Didn't expect to love this one as much as I did. I knew that I would like it because it's you know, gotta go to hell to find this person trope, and I love that trope, but this is my favorite among those books that I've read. It is my favorite now. It's pretty long, if I remember correctly, but I loved every single minute of it. Like, there wasn't a point where I ended up getting bored or uninterested in what was being said. I loved it. The next book is another autobiography, and it's probably the most impactful one. It is Nobody's Girl by Virginia Roberts Jeffrey. She was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and this is her documentation of what happened to her, her autobiography. And it is so dark and grim, but just beautifully written. It put me into a huge reading slump. I have kind of a dark past in some ways. I'm not gonna go into it, but yeah, some of it was very sensitive. Definitely look up trigger warnings for this one ahead of time. It's just, it doesn't matter who you are, this is gonna hurt you, basically, but if you have a kind of darker past, it's gonna hurt you more, and you need to know that going in. It's still important, and I feel like people still need to read it. The next book is another autobiography. It's Vagabond by Tim Curry. I adore Tim Curry. I don't know. I think he's a delightful human being. I've loved him in every role he's ever been in. He actually recorded the audiobook for this, even though he had a stroke and it impacted his vocal cords. And yeah, I think that he did a remarkable job with that and with his autobiography. It was a delight to read. He kept his comedic voice within the writing, while also managing to capture his actual life and maintain some seriousness and some of the darkness therein. But yeah, overall, just like, compared to a lot of the autobiographies that I read this year, this was the lightest and the funniest. Not that the other ones are less important or less impactful, but this is the one where, like, you could read it if you're not in a negative mental state. You'll be fine. It's cool. That made no sense. Even if you were in a negative mental state, I mean, this would probably help pull you out of it, if that makes any sense. The next book is When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This one, I stumbled across it on Libby. Complete surprise. I had no idea what it was about. I thought it was just like a basic werewolf story. It is not. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, it is not. There are some Who Framed Roger Rabbit vibes, but like less comedic. The writer had some fun and then also maybe needs therapy. I'm not sure, but I absolutely loved it. It's absurd in the best way. The next book that I read was Black and Blues by Imani Perry. This was a library book that I picked up, just on a whim. I stumbled across it in the new releases, and I was not disappointed. It was about how the color blue kind of ties into Black history and its impact on Black history, and I just thought it was fascinating and a fascinating, beautiful read overall. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for Imani Perry in the future. Number 21, I think, is the only science fiction book that I read this year. It's Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Again, I think this was a suggestion from my girlfriend. She and I we both read a lot, and we will recommend books along the way. Sometimes we have the same taste. It depends. It's a hit or miss thing. It's not 100%, but either way, we like to keep abreast of what the other person's reading. But yeah, Red Rising, Pierce Brown. I read the first 4 books in the series, I believe, but Red Rising was my favorite of the books. Didn't expect to be able to get into it because of the fact that it's science fiction, and I have to be in a particular mood to get into science fiction. The same is true of fantasy. But in this case, yeah, it was totally worth my time. All 4 books of the series were technically worth my time, but this one in particular is the one where I walked away like, I want to reread that again now.
Hey there, Future Carrie here. I just wanted to add that there's actually a lot of misogyny in Red Rising. It's kind of irresponsible for me to not mention that. There are also a lot of mentions of rape. Maybe look up the trigger warnings before you read it. I just realized that I kind of sang its praises and didn't mention all of the negative things. So yeah, definitely be mindful of that if you choose to read it.
The next book is another depressing yet necessary nonfiction book. It's On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. Extremely important book in this day and time. Let's not start hysterically laughing. It's basically about identifying tyranny and how to resist it. And yes, I would send a copy of this to everyone if I had those resources. I would. This next one, I included 2 books in one because they're part of the same series and they're extremely short. You could read them back to back and they would all feel like the same book, basically. It's Before We Say Goodbye and Before We Forget Kindness by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Again, this is a series. I believe that Before We Forget Kindness is the 6th book, 6th and final to date. book in the series. They're just such sweet, light little books. I'm not gonna act like the writing is anything, you know, astronomical or anything like that. They're very, I don't mean this in a bad way, they're very simple, they're concise, and they're cheesy, and I love it so much because, like, we need that. We need the cheesy, sweet positivity. And then, like, it's also sad. There's a golden retriever involved in one of them, and that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, we need that right now. This next book is my favorite fantasy for the year. It's What Stalks the Deep by T. Kingfisher, because of course it's T. Kingfisher. It is the third book in the Sworn Soldier series. It takes place in the Appalachian United States, so it kind of hit a little closer to home because I am from North Carolina. Really enjoyed this one. I'd say it's my second favorite of the 3 books that were put out so far overall, and one of my favorite books of the year. My second to last, there are 2 left, I'm going to say that, and this one is A Mystery of Mysteries, The Death and Life of Edgar Allan Poe by Mark Dawidziak. This was about Edgar Allan Poe's life through the lens of his death, essentially. Extremely interesting, absolutely loved it. I did want to include a couple of honorable mentions before I, say what my favorite book of the year is, which you probably know, because I was extremely enthused about it going into this year. My 2 honorable mentions are both by Kate Alice Marshall. They're A Killing Code and No One Can Know. These books, they didn't make my most disappointing list, but I don't feel like they were up to her usual standard. That being said, they were still better than most of the other books that I read this year. And if I didn't do a top 25, then they would have been 26 and 27 probably. My absolute favorite book of the year is Sunrise on the Reaping. Surprise to no one, I'm fairly certain. The Hunger Games is one of my special interests at this point. I kind of traded out. I already loved The Hunger Games, but my heart was fixated on another fandom, the fandom which shan't be named. At this point, it was fixated on that for about 20 years of my life, and then I could no longer have that because of the turf bitch. So my brain pivoted to The Hunger Games. Sunrise on the Reaping is the latest prequel in the series from the perspective of Haymitch, and oh my god, it was so good. It was much better than I expected, but Jesus Christ, it's depressing. It's so sad. It's pain. It's so much pain. So, like, yeah, I recommend it if you're a fan, I guess, but also I sort of don't, because, like, unless you're really interested in Haymitch's games from his perspective and you're super enthusiastic about the fandom like I am, I don't know if I want to put you through this. Like, he goes through so much. I don't know how they're going to turn this into a movie and market it to, like, young adults. Like, I have no idea how they're going to do it. At one point, he literally, like, trigger warning for child murder, but, that's the entire series, but this is, like, visceral shit. One of the tributes, cuts off the head of one of the other tributes, and just, like, some of it is very gory and harsh, and it actually, like, I feel like it does a better job of really hammering home, like, the depravity of the games. Not that it's not terrible in the other books, but this one, you feel it more. So yeah, I wouldn't say that this was one of my happier reading years, though I don't know. It kind of balanced out, because I read some extremely light, funny books, but then turned around and, read some deep, dark stuff that hurt me deeply. But yeah, I would say that it was a really good reading year overall. Like, I had trouble narrowing it down to just 25 of my favorite books. And that's saying something. Like, I could have included both of the Kate Alice Marshall books, probably included the Riley Sager book. There was a book called The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. That was weird, but good. The same can be said for Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fierro. They didn't make the list, but I still really liked them. There were just so many good books this year. My most disappointing list, I had to cut it a little short. Originally, I was going for 10. But then I couldn't come up with 10 books without really stretching it. So I cut it down to 5. And even that ended up being, like, stretching it the tiniest bit. But that also means I'm making a most surprising video, and I ended up cutting that down to 5 as well because of the fact that most disappointing was cut down. Anyway, I'm rambling! So, quick note from future me, I just realized, going back over my notes, that for some reason Storygraph did not document that I read Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker. I'm not really sure why. I remember putting it on there, and I'm not sure how it ended up deleted, which means that my total for the year is completely off. But yeah, that was also one of my favorite books for the year, and it was another one that I read and was kind of like, what the fuck? So that I'm adding it on to my favorites for the year. So I'm just gonna put this at the end of both of these videos. It was really well written, but I didn't expect it to go the way that it did. I didn't expect there to be supernatural components, if that makes sense. So yeah, I can put this both in my favorites and my most surprising because I really didn't expect it to go some of the directions that it went. It was not in a bad way, but it was immensely surprising. Would recommend, just know that it's pretty dark, maybe look up trigger warnings ahead of time. Those were my 25 favorite books of 2025, a great reading year. I hope that your reading year was as great as mine was, and if it wasn't, I hope that 2026 will be better for you. I hope that everyone had the happiest of holidays, and they're having a great new year so far. I originally meant to put this video up back in December. I had videos filmed for the last, like, 4 months or so that I didn't post anything. I just didn't end up editing them and posting them in time, and now they feel kind of irrelevant. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know what you're doing here, but I appreciate it way more than you know. There is no consistency in this channel anymore, and I can't guarantee that it's going to get any easier anytime soon. So the fact that anyone still watches my videos is kind of a surprise to me, especially people outside of my immediate circle of, like, friends and family. That's just, it's astounding to me. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to like and share and subscribe and comment, any of that stuff, that's wonderful. I applaud you. Not necessary if you do not want to. What is most important to me in this new year is for you to set a resolution to love yourself. Please, please, please. Just do it. Just try it. You might like it. You might. Bye.